this very dangerous game of wanting to have plausible deniability. And then the final point I think we must all admit is that when I talk about Israeli resolve, I'm also talking about the government. Remember, Israel is a nuclear power. In 1967, with the Six-Day War, when all those Arab countries was attacking Israel, there was a moment when Israel was considering using a nuclear weapon to defend itself. I'm saying that if this gets out of control, we might find ourselves getting to that point again, where Israel is going to say we need to use a nuclear weapon in Iran. And the question then is, what is the West going to do, the collective West? Will they allow Israel to use such a weapon? Mm-hmm. And two, will Russia and China respond and then come to the defense?
And then what about tiny us, who get caught in the crossfires of that relationship? Because that brings the BRICS conversation to the table, that brings our difficult relationship with the US to the table as well, because Iran was a factor at some level. What happens to us? Are we caught in those crosshairs? How do we navigate that?
We are already in the crosshairs, as you know, starting from the Biden administration already, coming into the Trump administration. The PR propaganda of white genocide and killing of farmers and crime being off the stats and so forth is all part of a carefully choreographed plan to discredit the junior partner of BRICS. We know, for example, the proxy is Ukraine fighting with Russia, weakening Russia. They're not succeeding. They thought they would be far, far more advanced than where they are. Putin is winning on the battleground. They then target South Africa in terms of weakening South Africa with propaganda and so forth. And of course, they're going to get more and more involved in our upcoming elections and propping up some of the oppositions and so forth, destabilizing the country. And sanctions will probably also come. And I won't put that out of the reach. And then, of course, they've been encircling China, building more military bases in the Philippines, taking control of some of the islands, propping up their proxy Taiwan. They're getting ready for it. You must remember the bigger picture here that I mentioned in the beginning, that the United States as an empire is crumbling.
Yes,
its global hegemony is falling and it's waning. And these are desperate measures. They've come to appreciate that they can no longer do it through soft power and through diplomacy. And so they've decided to take out the big sticks. They're going to hit us into submission.
The other thing
so we're going to see more conflict.
The other thing that we spoke about, and we touched on it, but I didn't ask you to elaborate, was the global impact. Even, I mean, you mentioned oil, and that's literally what I always think about when I think Middle East conflict. I think oil. Then I think about, geez, what will be the impact of all of this on the global economy? So before we even get to the idea of World War III, I should have actually parked you there and said, but the economic impact on all of us from this kind of clash.
No, absolutely. I mean, this speaks at the heart of the United States and what it's doing with the weaponizing of trade through tariffs, the weaponizing of the US dollar. These are all attempts to try and regulate the global economy so that it is still in their favor. So here they are prepared to disrupt that, because we know when you have conflict in Iran, it's not only the size of Iran, it's the fact that it is one of the biggest oil producers in the world, one of the biggest gas producers in the world. It has direct control over the Straits of Hormuz because 70% of traffic goes through there in terms of oil. So the energy sector globally is going to be under strain. They're doing it because they also want to hurt Russia indirectly. Remember, the thing that brings money in for Russia is oil and gas. And China is buying it, and India is buying it, and anyone who can buy it for cheap is buying it, and that's what's keeping Russia going. So if you hurt Iran, and if you put pressure on the energy sector, on oil and gas in particular, it will also indirectly hurt Russia. What they are not thinking about is what is going to be the knock-on effect, because we know that the economies in the Western Europe is already in recession. They're already taking strain. Germany is having to close down certain car plants. They never thought it would ever happen. VW having to close plants potentially. Jobs are being lost. The same pressure is there with France and the UK. So I think that there's just a sense of craziness that is going around I mean, not in the first 6 months of an administration, of Trump's administration, I know people think he's been around for years, but in the first 6 months, they're already talking about potential nuclear fallout in the Middle East.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think that's where he wanted to be.
No, I shudder when I think about what could potentially happen in the remaining years. I've got a call on the line with a question for you. James in the Joburg CBD. Hi.
How are you, CD?
Very good. You can go ahead, Dr. Van Heerden is listening.
Yeah, CD, I think your guest has taken most of my talking points, but I was going to say that in the main, I think it's about China. It may look like it's about Iran now. You understand? So I think this is a war. China and Russia, they have no choice. It's the war that they must not lose. I think they have to back up Iran. Because
it's a war they must not lose, you say?
It's a war that they must not lose. I mean, look, this clandestine, participation of the United States, is fooling very few people. That is not fooling her. And then, I think also it will save, in my mind, I think the people of Gaza, it's obvious that the Western powers, are supporting barbarism in Gaza. And then if Iran falls, who else is going to fall? Do you understand? We have to, China and Russia, they have no choice. They have to really participate in this war.
All right, James, thank you so much. That's James out in the Johannesburg CBD. Doctor, he's pretty much echoing your sentiments as he said. You're looking at the picture in the same way, pretty much.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it is. He is absolutely correct. It's not fooling people. The unfortunate part, and I think it is important to mention this to you, that the Western media, mainstream media, and how complicit they are in manufacturing consent. You talk just over the last 4 days. If you look at the conflict between Israel and Iran, you would think that much more damage has been inflicted on Iran, and indeed there has been damage. But the concentration of that, what Israel has hit in Iran, and almost very little what Iran has hit in Israel, they keep us away from that. We don't want to see the destruction that's happening in Israel. Of course, we saw in the ongoing Ukrainian war, just blatantly lying about statistics, about how many dead, about what kind of damage has been inflicted, about the fact that there were NATO commanders in a certain venue that has now occupied the number one position in the world. And unfortunately, there are forces on the other side that are saying, your time is up, and you need to accept it.
All right, thank you. I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you so much, Dr. Van Heerden, speaking to us there about that conflict. I hope you have a better understanding, a little bit, of what's at play, what are the consequences. He says that we are in uncharted waters. We've never seen the fall of an empire before. Scary times. Oscar Van Heerden, of course, is a senior research fellow for the Center of African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg. It is now 10:30. Yes, we saw the headlines.
Thanks, CD. Good morning. Deputy President Paul Mashatile is expected to deliver the keynote address at today's official Youth Day commemoration in the Northwest. June 16 is declared a National Youth Day due to the active role and participation of young people in the liberation struggle, especially during the 1976 student uprising. The commemorative events this year are held under the theme Skills for the Changing World, Empowering Youth for Meaningful Economic Participation. The Northwest Health Department says it plans to conclude the burials of illegal miners who died at a decommissioned gold mine in Stilfontein. The bodies of almost 90 Zamazamas were pulled from an abandoned shaft earlier this year when police intensified an operation to clamp down on illegal mining at the old Buffelsfontein gold community. In the ongoing attack between Tehran and Israel, Ismail Baghai gave a press briefing this morning saying it is time for the UN Security Council to take the necessary measures and act. Baghai says Israeli forces targeted residential areas, nuclear facilities in Isfahan and other areas in violation of international law, international practices and norms. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic. Very good morning. Let's start in the city of Johannesburg, Orlando West, Soweto, slow-moving traffic on Tabete Street, and the CBD of Joburg seeing moderate pressure on Plain Street, and this is between Joburg and Plain Street, westbound towards Pretext and Agribank, also seeing some queuing traffic. It's going to be traffic lights out in Joburg. This is in Red Park Ridge and North Drive, Swart Drive, as well as N3 and N3 South and Vincent Chabalala Road. Similar issues specifically the capital, Brakfontein, now the Midstream Drive, as well as Industrial at Roger Basin and Industrial Road. I'll have a next traffic update in 30 minutes or as it happens.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. This Youth Month, 702 honors the youth of yesterday and celebrates the youth of today. Let's walk the talk.
Hollywood Bets is bringing you a bounty of prizes with Skinner Zonke prize drops. Gear up to unravel an endless supply of treasures and claim fantastic riches with a chance to win an amazing share of 2.5 million rand in cash and prizes. All you have to do is bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play games.
And Hood, their CEO, will be in conversation with Bongani Pingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
10:35, the Clement Manantela Show. CD Madia in for Clement. So we're speaking a little bit earlier on about the Israeli-Iran conflict, and I mean, I guess they're saying we're in uncharted waters, that you've never seen the fall of an empire, that it's actually about the United States. That'll also explain our relationship with the US, isn't it? We move on now to focus a little bit on young people. I have been saying earlier that my head is constantly thinking about the youth of 76 versus the youth of 2025, the Fees Must Fall generation. So that's a lot of what I've been going back and forth about. But also we'll speak about violence. If you've got questions about how gender-based violence impacts young people, please feel free to call in. Our guest, Fina Kholisang, will be able to shed some light on what's happening in our country.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
So, as I understand it, young people in the country are paying a heavy mental price for a crisis that's become painfully commonplace. That's gender-based violence, whether in their homes, in schools or communities. Exposure to inappropriate conduct ranging from bullying and harassment to sexual assault and rape has left a silent psychological burden on children and adolescents. It is pervasive, guys. It is relentless. It is a daily reality for so many South Africans. So we're going to try and get a better understanding of how the violent figures that we speak about, the violent stories we tell every day, impact young people. I'm joined now on the line by Fina Kholisang, who's CEO of the Soul City Institute for Social Justice. Fina, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, CD, and thank you for having me.
Let's speak about gender-based violence in the sense of young people. I mean, I spoke about, how and what I understand. And when I look at it, I go, oh, you're looking at, is it murder? Is it rape? Is it abuse?
In these relationships that are complex, and the complication is the socio-economic background of these young people puts them in that vulnerable position. We see a lot of older men preying on these young women. So if you thought the lesser phenomenon was something that is long gone, we still have it. It's still prevalent, and it's now the younger older men, right? By younger older men, I mean the 35-year-olds who are preying on your 15-year-olds, your 17-year-olds, instead of going to their age mates, they target these girls that are still in school, and so we see a lot of that, and we see a lot of young people being desensitized to violence. It's like it's so normal because we are not acting, we are not seeing the justice system also doing its part. So you take it as the normal part of the relationship to be abused physically, emotionally, and to be sexually violated as well.
I want to take it a step back a little bit. You spoke about how it's young men and it's young women, and you also spoke a little bit about themselves in a position where they're preying on young women. Is it a power thing that drives where they are? And even their behavior, what is the influence? Before I even speak about the women that you mentioned, what is the behavior and the past and the influence that will drive young men to also not only target teenagers for relationships in the intimate partner violence space, but to also want to go, not find a peer, not find an adult, but go and prey on a young girl, and then let that extend to being a physical thing where they're violent or even psychologically violent.
It's about power. You said it correctly, right? Power is at the center of this behavior that is driven by wanting to
educational spaces, their confidence in those spaces. So be it a young man or a young woman who's experiencing the kind of violence that we report and we speak about, how does it impact their educational journey, their outcomes, and even their pursuit of opportunities for themselves?
I think let's stick a bit to how media then plays a big role, and social media in particular. How the trends of young women having whatever that the hair that they have, the bags that they have, the type of phones that they have, the type of trips that it makes young people aspire for that, and many of them who show having those, it's few who say, I did it for myself, right? It's many who say, indoor must provide, and therefore I want a man who can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so already with that, young women are placing themselves in a position of vulnerability. Because how are you going to negotiate one condom use in that type of a relationship where somebody already has power over you, and their leverage is that if you don't give me what I want, I withdraw the benefits that you are getting from me, And as much as most of them would also use this as an opportunity to get money to further their studies and education, it's also about that can be withdrawn at any minute. So you try to do whatever to please whoever is the provider, in this slang language, Oscar Boramureki, right? So that psyche of Oscar Boramureki also makes you not challenge and not even report where you feel, I'm not liking this, because now Mureki will take their resources. So honestly, it's a position of vulnerability. You are subdued by somebody who has something that you aspire to have, and they are using it, as leverage to control and to abuse you. So when it comes to young women, that's what we observe, that's what we hear when we engage with young women in our clubs. That level of vulnerability where they feel helpless, because what else am I going to do? This is the only way I feel I can get to where I want to go. And when